So here's what I want to talk about today.
This is truly a surprise to
It
me.
is, yeah. You have no idea.
Oh, boy, okay.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why I want to talk about this topic. And it has to do with angels and aliens. And
Okay.
so there's been all this stuff, right? And there's been all the UFO footage that's been, or what do they call it now? Shoot, I can't remember.
UFIs?
Yeah, no.
Unidentified flying individuals?
No.
Yeah.
I hate it when they change things. Anyway, but there's so there's all that footage. Then Steven Spielberg's coming out. His movie's coming out this weekend. By the time this episode's dropped,
Is it this
it'll
weekend?
be a couple weeks. Yeah, it's this weekend.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I love Steven Spielberg movies, and I get the feeling this is going to be one of his best ones.
Ooh.
Well, that's
Okay.
what he thinks.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember, who doesn't like, E.T. and Close Encounters
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Third Kind?
Yeah. Huh.
This
Do you
would-
know anything about it? It's called Disclosure Day.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing the basic storyline is this big reveal that aliens have been living among us for a long time, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
It's going to be one of those.
And then all the aliens are like, oh, crap. Now they're going to know.
Yeah. It's a recurring theme. I remember watching V. Do you remember that?
Oh, my gosh.
When I was a kid.
That scared the crap out of
Yeah.
me. They would peel their
Yeah,
skin off,
and
and they
they'd
were
turn it-
reptiles
Yeah, they
underneath.
turn into these lizard things.
Yeah.
Yeah, V stands for victory. Do you remember?
I thought it was visitor.
No.
Oh, maybe from their standpoint,
Yeah, it
was victory.
No, from like the human standpoint, V stands for victory because it became this big titanic battle to
I just remember there were some visibly scary things in that show. Aside from people peeling their skin off, that they were lizards underneath, they would eat like whole entire animals. Do you remember that?
vaguely.
Yeah, it was.
I liked that show though.
So did I.
Yeah,
I thought it was great.
yeah. So
Okay.
there's that, but there's also recently Cardinal McElroy disciplined a priest in the diocese who's an exorcist, who on his YouTube channel made this claim that
Yes.
these UFO
I did hear about
sightings
this.
are really demons. So anyway, I just was like, oh, this would be a fun topic to wrestle
Yeah.
with and to talk about.
Okay.
So
Cool.
let's do it. The part of I want to preface this conversation by saying that when I was in college, there were 4 different courses I took that I always say I think I learned more about God in these 4 classes than any of my theology courses. So one of them was an astronomy class,
Okay.
and then I took a physics class, and then I took a math class, and then I took a class on faith and science, which was all about quantum physics. But all of them were kind of like philosophical approaches to these topics. So, like, I wasn't a science major, so we didn't do any of the mathematics associated with it. It was like a philosophical
Even though the
treatment.
one class was called mathematics.
It was a philosophy. No,
Oh,
seriously, it was a
okay.
philosophy of math course.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
it was like understanding what math is. It was fascinating. All 4 of those classes were really good. And I read, had to read a lot of interesting books on sort of the interface between faith and science.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I ate it up. And so some of the things I'll share will come from things that I learned in those courses and, things that I've continued to read about here and there along the way over the course of the years. But this whole conversation that's going on has just been really fascinating to me because of, I call it the politics of the conversation.
Okay.
So, there's always, these kind of conversations are always laced with this kind of there's always these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, of course.
So, whether it's on the alien side of things, it's like, you remember the whole Hangar 51, out in the deserts of Area 51. Yeah, out in the deserts of Nevada, or,
Yeah.
Utah or whatever,
Oh yeah.
and these secret,
Underground. They're
warehouses
all
with
holding them in these underground mountains.
alien life and UFOs, and so they have finally, they're releasing all the files and all of the, and I just think it's funny because what you end up seeing are these very granulated black and white, video.
Yeah, there's never any high def anything.
Yeah. Like
even
we
when
don't
pilots take video of things, it's not like they have their phone out and it's
right.
yeah.
And you would think that today we'd have cameras on our aircraft that are pretty pretty good, pretty high definition. So, even if you release stuff, there's still conspiracies, around that.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the other side of things where, there's the theories that these are really demonic manifestations.
Yeah. I heard a little bit about that. Father Chad Reppinger was on another podcast, and he was getting into that pretty heavily.
Yeah.
So
anyhow,
yeah,
I think it would be interesting to just sort of unpack all of this.
Can I tell you my idea for a television show?
Sure.
Oh man, I would love to do this. It's this big build up. It almost like makes it seem like it's going to be this really scary sci-fi movie because you see the alien ships, like there's the whole tension build up to this, like the introduction of the aliens to the Earthlings. And the aliens come out of the ship. It's all sort of like, there's all the smoky kind of stuff going on, and they descend out of the ship. And they're shaped very weird, like we think aliens would be. But they're wearing T-shirts with Jesus' image on them. And instead of them coming out all sort of confrontational and like, take me to your leader, they say, let me tell you about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So it's like the last thing that Earth expects. But these are missionaries. They're missionary aliens from a different planet where Jesus also came to them and showed up to them. And so their gospel is exactly the same, except their writers are like LARP and MORP.
That's hilarious. That would be a great movie.
So it's just this whole like them, trying to convert the Earth, even though we're already in the process of trying to do that. So, yeah, I thought that would be pretty funny.
God's last messengers, aliens from outer space.
Yes, this would be brilliant.
That would be really a fun movie to make. It would be hilarious.
Okay,
oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that like. And like, how do you tackle this topic?
Right,
and I think I wanted to start with what I learned from my physics teachers when I was in college, because as I've tuned into these conversations, I don't think much has changed in terms of the general consensus of the community of physicists out there, that talk about, the massive improbability of, like when you start thinking about questions like, is there life on other planets? The exponential factors involved in creating the right conditions for there to be life, and then for there to be organic life, and then for there to be actual intelligent organic life. It's just like it's something to the massive, nth degree, and so that isn't to preclude the possibility. So that's one factor, is like it's probably rare that if there is, and my physics teacher, who wasn't coming at this from the standpoint of being a Catholic believer, but just as a physicist, I had two physics teachers. They both said the same thing. They said there is a very, very, very high probability that there is not
really
organic, like highly developed organic life. There might be microbial organic life on other planets, but highly developed organic life and then intelligent life, I mean, you just get to factors of improbability that you can't even
do you
get
remember
your
the
mind
movie
around.
Contact with Jodie Foster?
Yeah.
So they, her big line from that movie was, and I think Carl Sagan wrote that book, but her line was, if there's no other life out there in the entire universe, she said, then it's an awful waste of space. And it's like, I mean, I totally agree. It seems like to replicate the exact conditions where the temperature is, perfectly. I mean, even if the Earth was like, I forget what the thing is, but even if the Earth shifted the most smallest amount, nothing would exist, like.
Yeah. No.
So I mean,
no
it
life
is
would.
right.
Yeah.
So it is very particular, but it's a huge. I mean, we don't even know how big the universe is.
Well, I mean, you're right, and we can't we speculate that the number keeps changing, but 5 billion universes like the Milky
Yeah.
Way, 8 billion universes, like that's as far as the eye can see with all of our telescopes and all that
right.
stuff. So, I mean, trying to get your head around that number just itself, and then when you think about the vast distances that are involved within each of those galaxies and then between them, like that's the thing that blew me away, is like there is no way to get your head around how grand it is. So, but so for me, this was the more convincing argument. The more convincing argument wasn't that the probability is so low that we could replicate the conditions of Earth. So you would say, okay, I can accept the fact that it's relatively speaking very rare. So in other words, there might be 1 million planets in the entire vastness of the universe that could potentially have organic and developed life on it. But the more convincing argument for me was when you start considering the distances. There's two things that I learned that I think are really critical: how far the distances are, and then on top of that, the amount of energy it takes for a single particle to approach the speed of light. Like for a particle to get near the speed of light, there's not enough energy in the universe to actually propel that particle to go the speed of light. So when you look, for example, at the width of the Milky Way galaxy, this is the width, not the long ways, but the narrow way.
Yeah.
It's something like 100,000 light years for light to travel the width way across that. So it was interesting. I just saw a picture on some post where it showed like in 1 million years, the little satellite that's out there, that just went past, I don't know, Pluto or whatever, and it's got some great pictures. It shows this little red line, which is this small little segment of the Milky Way galaxy that going as fast as that thing is going, which is, I don't know, who knows, maybe it's like 50,000 miles an hour or something that. It's this little red line that, covers, I don't know, this small little distance across the Milky Way, and it'll take 1 million years. So the argument that my physics teacher made, that it would be like the amount of time it would take intelligent life to get to us is so long, if it's going close to the speed of light, that the universe isn't that old. Like it's just like it's physically impossible to travel those distances. So we're talking about intelligent life having to have formed millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago to be able to travel to Earth and to be here. So it just raises all sorts of questions, like how would organic life last that long? I mean, we fantasize about it in sci-fi movies about putting people to sleep and then hyperdrive and and light speed,
wormholes,
and all this kind of stuff. But the physics of it just doesn't add up. Okay, so
no, that makes sense.
So so I guess as I think through this as a thinker, I think, okay, whatever we're seeing, okay, let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just maintain that the video footage that we have is real video footage of something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Something that can drop like 30,000 feet in less than a second.
Yeah, or take these ridiculous turns,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
defy gravity in ways that are improbable to us.
Yes.
Okay, let's just, for the sake of argument, say that we're really seeing something. Now, that's bracketing out or ruling out the possibility that what we're seeing is some sort of tech glitch or some sort of technological anomaly where something gets in your camera, or or a fraud. Someone just like generates a fake video and circulates it. I mean, like, so eliminating those possibilities, which I think there's a high probability that there's things that just don't show up right, or something happens. But if you take those out of the equation, you say, okay, so we're objectively seeing something that's inexplicable based upon what physicists seem to know about the size and the scope of the universe and the age of the universe. There's just no way that can be organic biological life from another planet. Like, even if it exists out there, there's no way they could ever make it here. And that was the argument I heard. I was like disappointed because, I loved E.T. and I wanted, I wanted, like in Star Wars and all of that, like I wanted all of that to be true, but it was like, and that when I listen to physicists today, like serious physicists, they say the same thing, and they just have an even better, more mathematical and more theoretically grounded basis for saying the same thing. Like,
now, could I say that's based on what we know? In other words, have they discovered some way of travel or some way of where they can go beyond the normal limits of organic, the typical lifespan of an organic material. You know what I mean? Like, they've figured out how to.
Well, it's like, it's always possible.
Yeah.
Like, we can speculate that this is a possibility.
Right.
But based upon what we know now, what would you say? The knowledge practice gap for being able to do that is so infinite that it's hard to conceive of how you could defy physics. And I think the other thing too is, like, based upon very simple things, like when an airplane breaks the sound barrier, when you part air, like take a lightning bolt, okay? Let's imagine that you had an aircraft that could travel at the same velocity as a lightning bolt. Well, what does a lightning bolt do when it passes through the atmosphere? Like, the air parts, heats up, cools quickly, comes together, and creates a massive clap of thunder. So how in the world could a material object travel through our atmosphere at not even that speed, not even close to that speed, but still way beyond the sound barrier, and not make any noise, not create any kind of disruption to the flow of air, or affect the atmosphere in any way?
Yeah.
Like, there's no precedence in our basis of science, knowledge of science, to give any credence to an idea like that. Like, there's just that's ridiculous.
But maybe they don't have to figure out how to go faster. Maybe they just maybe they have figured out how to, like bend the rules of, like the classic, instead of going from point A to point B,
but this is
you
where
fold
I put
the
my
paper on itself and just poke through. Maybe. And maybe they have an AI pilot. Like, maybe they themselves are like, they've long time ago, they already discovered all the things that we discovered, and they have like AI people who, have an infinite lifespan, and they just send those people in their ships.
Well, I mean, again, you can speculate about such things, but on the basis of what? Just my imagination.
Sure.
I can extrapolate based upon what I know, and then I can completely suspend the laws of physics in order to postulate that somehow there's no real scientific basis to speculate in that way, but why not? Let's do it anyway. It's like when you think about how long it took for organic life to form on planet Earth, it took almost the entire span of the of the universe from the Big Bang to the moment to get us. Why would we believe that another part of the universe had enough time? It just doesn't make.
You're right.
It doesn't make any sense. Had enough time to develop in such a sophisticated way that they could also develop the technology that they could basically defy the ordinary constants of the universe in order to be able to travel in this way with enough time. Like, there's nothing we know about physics that gives us any reason to believe that that's possible.
Right. So
and that's not to say, again, I want to be clear. That's not to say that there aren't other planets that are roughly in the same window of time that we are that have intelligent life where God created other rational creatures. I mean, that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But that they've come here, that's the issue. It's more reasonable, in my opinion, based upon what I learned in these classes, to believe that other life could exist in other parts of the universe, because the universe is so big, and there's so many chances that planets that could have formed around suns that have the same more or less variables that we have here, that kind of life could have formed. But that they traveled here, and that there's enough time in the age of the universe for that to happen. Yeah. Well, if it hasn't happened here, why would we believe that it would be light years ahead of where we are?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so that's.
Why do you think people are so, like, they're almost like they would like that to be true?
Well, I don't. I mean, I can only speculate. Sort of like I can muse poetically about that or philosophically. I think it's a couple of things come to mind. One is that I think that through our space age, time in history, there's a fascination and a curiosity with the question, what's out there? And I think the prospect that we're alone is a very, very existentially terrifying and frightful kind of thought. It would be like, imagine, it's like the same question for Europeans when we said, what's on the other side of the ocean? Like, are you going to fall off the other side of the ocean? And so when we traveled across the ocean and we found that there were other humans, we were like, well, okay, so if we travel across space, why would we not find other humanoid creatures? It's like, well, you might be able to, but the difference is imagine that the ocean that we had to travel was basically infinite as far as we're concerned. It would take millions and millions of years to sail a ship across the ocean. It's like, well, we're never going to get there, so we'll never know the answer to that question. Whereas you could sail across the ocean in a couple of months, and it's perfectly within our biological reach to be able to provide the food and the water and all the things that we needed to travel that distance. So it's like to extrapolate from the ocean to space. That's one thing. The other thing too is I think that there are phenomena that occur, and this is more the theological side of the question, that we don't have a good answer for scientifically. So it's easy to just assume, therefore, that whatever phenomenon we're witnessing has to be alien life from another planet that has figured out a way to come here. And I think theologically we have way better answers to that, or philosophically I would even say, except for the fact that we live in a world that's highly skeptical of any kind of account of things that's not empirical. So that's the other part of the conversation that I think is worth getting into, where, Father Chad and other priests and people speculate about things, and they're getting into trouble. And the thing that I think is ironic is that, in my opinion, to discredit those philosophical speculations is actually not very scientific. So
I don't understand. Why did the person get squashed?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked deeply into all the reasons, and I'm not sure they're available. Like, my hunch is that there were other issues going on, other political issues going on between the diocese and that priest, and I haven't looked into this that deeply, but it looks to me like this became the reason or the excuse to censor this priest.
Okay.
And it could be because of other things that were being said or done, or it could be that there's an ideological difference between a more left-leaning cardinal and a more right-leaning, and so I don't want to
Yeah.
I don't want to comment on that, but on the face of it, the statement that was made publicly by Cardinal McElroy was that we have a very clear understanding of the demonic, and he is speculating outside the parameters of what we're allowed to say. So it could be that he asserted something in a kind of dogmatic fashion that could lead the faithful astray, and didn't preface what he was saying as being a matter of speculation. And I know that Father Chad sometimes goes in that direction. He says things with a kind of authority and a kind of certainty that is not warranted. Like, you're speculating, and it's okay to speculate, but you better say you're speculating. You're throwing your best intellectual guess out there.
Yeah.
But so it could be that, or it could be that they, in fact, this priest did couch what he said carefully, and when you listen to what he says, he's qualifying what he's saying, and I'm saying this because we can't just reduce it to what was recorded. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't just say it was what was recorded and put out there.
Sure.
There might be other things that he has said that other people have testified to. I just, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things.
But basically what they're asserting, real quick, is that most, if not all, of what people are seeing in these instances is something in the spiritual realm, like a demon or something like that. Like, right? Isn't that what they're asserting? That a lot of this
what they're saying is that these unidentified objects that are caught on film are demons. That's what they're saying publicly, and or to soften it, they could be saying that these could be demons.
Okay.
Okay. Do you see the difference? These are demons versus these could be demons, and that there are prelates in the church that are uncomfortable with making a theological association between a kind of scientifically based phenomena and a theological claim, and that we just, as a church, we don't go there. We just don't comment on things like that. But the reason why I'm being so cautious in my commentary is that a lot of times, most of the time, when decisions are made at the administrative level of the church, there's usually a lot going on behind the scenes that are not for public knowledge. So I don't know what all has transpired with this particular priest that could have or might have led to this kind of disciplinary action. When you look at the surface of things and what was put out there, it seems relatively harmless, except for the fact that maybe some people fear that kind of speculation could lead, the faithful astray into a level of belief that, in fact, these phenomenon are demons, and that's what the church is teaching.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, and you're like, well, you don't want people to think that.
Right.
But you also don't want to shut down legitimate speculation about what these phenomenon could be. And I think it's a legitimate and important question for us to be able to talk about openly, because in my opinion, it's much more probable that we're dealing with we're dealing with conspiracy theory when we talk about warehouses out in the desert holding, alien bodies and alien ships that somehow nobody's ever seen before. That's way more conspiratorial than positing that these phenomena could be produced by the presence of angelic beings. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes when angels appear in the Bible, it's terrifying. and it involves a lot of light, and things appear and things disappear very suddenly. Angels appear and angels disappear suddenly. They're there, they're not there, and they're very luminous creatures and they're terrifying. So it's not so far outside the realm of speculation that in this age of space and alienation and stuff like that, that an angelic being might manifest themselves in a way that would play into those narratives and those fears and those things that we have. I don't think that that's conspiracy. That's a legitimate, like, it's a legitimate object of speculation.
Yeah.
Now, to assert they are demons,
Yeah.
that's going too far. There's no way you could
So this is making me think, like,
you could prove that.
yeah, that I never really thought about this, but all of these things that people have been seeing over the years are like, they're not shaped like people. They're an orb, like this floating orb, or they are
A disc, yeah.
a disc. It's like, and I never thought about this, but I guess does Scripture ever really explicitly describe the appearance of when an angel appeared? Like when the angel appeared to Mary, does it describe the appearance? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
is it
no,
it
I
was
mean,
a
not so
being
much.
with wings and
The-
long flowing blonde hair?
Well, okay, so great question.
Or was it an orb?
There's
or a
two
disc?
basic kind of ways in which angels are described in the Bible. And the book of Tobit gives us the clearest description in the description of Raphael,
Okay.
and Raphael clearly appears in the form of a human.
Hmm.
But and then you have the three angels that appear to Abraham by the terebinth at Mamre, and he's filled with fear. They seem to be luminous, and but they're human, and they are addressed as God himself. So it's clear they're a messenger of God. God is presenting himself to Abraham there in the form of angels. So angels are like messengers. Like that's the theology of an angel.
Mhm.
Angels are messengers of God.
Yeah.
And, angels are pure spirits. The other description you get more from the prophets in the apocalyptical literature, where you have these portrayals of like things like angels being manifested either as these kind of like spinning wheels with eyes, like these very bizarre, like almost geometric shapes,
Okay.
or in the more demonic form, more in the form of like beasts and animals that they are angelic beings that present and manifest themselves in the form of like scary animals, like hybrid type of creatures.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
we typically portray Satan and the demons in these kind of quasi, and then we either portray angels in this kind of like typical human form with the wings, like because that's there is a description, of the seraphs being these almost human-like creatures with all these wings that surround them, but also like in Ezekiel you have these images of these like spinning wheels, and like when artists try to represent what the Bible depicts, it's like that's the way it's described. Now, if you're approaching Scripture with a kind of historical critical cynicism, where these are just symbolic images that have purely symbolic value and they're not really trying to describe real phenomenon that people really experienced, then you're just going to explain. That's kind of a rationalist or a kind of naturalist explanation, but it remains, I think, a very legitimate and open-ended question. Like, well, what did people actually experience? What did they really see?
Yeah.
And when the prophets had these visions, of angels, they were seeing something, and they were seeing it in a vision, and the vision itself might be symbolic, like you're making a visible representation of a spiritual being, but that just goes to show that it's possible that a angel might manifest themselves in the visible order in one of these three ways that I've just described.
Mm-hmm.
So so people actually have an experience that they sense. And in sensing this experience, it is a representation of an angel, because you can't see an angel is a spirit.
Right.
But the angels can present themselves in forms that are visible and are they can appeal to the senses in some way.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a very strong biblical basis for that. So it's way more plausible, in my opinion, to say that there may be phenomena that we witness that can only be explained not so much by biological life traveling infinitely,
Right.
practically, as far as we're concerned, infinite
Yeah.
light years to
Yeah.
show up at our planet. It's way more plausible to speculate that what the Bible presents to us continues to happen on occasion, where angels of one sort or another, good or bad, will manifest themselves in some way to alert us, make us aware of their presence. And we can't explain these things according to the law of physics, because they so profoundly defy the law of physics that we must be dealing with. And here I will introduce a technical physical term, or a philosophical term. We have to be dealing with something that's of a metaphysical nature. And in philosophy, metaphysical things of the metaphysical order are things that exist beyond the dimensions and the properties of physics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, when you talk about God, you don't talk about God, the divine, as being a physical. I mean, God became man in the person of Jesus, but God himself is a metaphysical reality that is pure spirit. And spirits aren't bound or aren't conditioned by, they don't exist in or according to the mode of what we typically associate with the visible order, or what we call the material order.
So
Can the angels make their presence manifest in a way that's mediated by the properties of our existence?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Bible clearly says yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what if you're a non-believer? Like, it seems like somebody might respond to that by saying, "Oh, that's just like lazy explanation. Like, oh, we can't explain it. It must be metaphysical." It's almost like how the Marvel universe has switched to like the multiverse, and it's like, oh, at this point you can explain away anything because, oh yeah, that's just in a different universe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting because most physicists today have realized that the multiverse still had to have a beginning. So there was a time when the universe wasn't, even if you posit a multiverse. But there's more and more evidence to suggest now that the multiverse theory just doesn't hold. So it's a universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's one.
Yeah.
And you say, well, what's beyond the universe? And you're like, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing. Like, it. And this is something else I learned in these courses. Like, let's say I was traveling to the very outer, let's say I could somehow get out to the very outer, the universe itself is contained within the parameter that of the physical reality of the planets and the sun and the gases and all the things that comprise the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd say, well, what's beyond that? It's like there is no beyond that. Everything that is within the visible and material order of things is contained within the circumference of that space-time reality. There isn't anything. So if I travel to the edge of that and I try to go beyond, I can't ever go beyond, because the distance I travel is just the expansion of the space-time perimeter, you could say. I just expand it. And that's what's happening. The universe is going out. So the actual if you were to take a tape measure across from one side of the universe to the other, it's just the tape is just getting bigger, but you can't ever get outside or beyond that.
But isn't the spiritual world sort of like a multiverse kind of world? Like it's outside of our.
Well, we have no idea. Like outside, inside are meaningless terms when you talk about spirits, because there is no here or there.
Yeah.
They don't have bodies. Like they don't. It's. And it's like we have no way of, like, we have very, very weak metaphors and analogies by which we can try to describe. I mean, we can describe it philosophically, like that is according to the categories of metaphysics, and it's more what we would say by way of the via negativity. We know that an angel is not this, and this.
Yeah.
Because they don't have bodies, but to positively assert what a spiritual substance is, even the word substance is suspect, because it's an analogous term, or it's a term of approximation. We're trying to find a language to talk about something of which we can't have any empirical experience except when they manifest themselves to us in an empirical way. That is, they create some effect in our mode of existence, namely within the visible. So when the Archangel Gabriel appears to the Blessed Virgin, he appears within the context of some kind of mediation by which Mary can receive the message. So he appears like a human, but there's something luminous and something, that the eyes can behold and the ears can grasp, that the message is allowed to be given and received in that moment. But what an angel is, what Gabriel is in himself, even the word himself is, again, it's language of approximation, because he's not a boy, doesn't have reproductive organs, you know what I'm saying? He's an angel. So it's like there's a metaphysical description that we grasp before to try to understand this. But what we know is that spiritual existence is not the same as the existence of the visible, or quote-unquote material world. I put material in quotations because there's a whole lot of things that we can now say from the side of science about the material world that raises all sorts of questions, which would be interesting to talk about too. But
okay, but I have one quick question. So it seems like if we're using scripture as not proof, but there's these metaphysical events that happen, like that are recorded. And it seems, maybe just because there's a lot of time that's condensed into that book, but it seems like that was a fairly frequent-ish occurrence. Like, so there's been 2,000 years since then. To a skeptic, what are some metaphysical events like that that you could be like, well, don't you remember this? Because they're like, you know what I'm saying? Like a skeptic is going to be like, there's no proof of that,
Well, the only way we could ground that, and of course to the skeptic who's a naturalist, a rationalist, and an empiricist, meaning only what my brain can comprehend, that's rationalism. Naturalism, only what can be explained by the laws of physics, biology, chemistry, and only what is like, in other words, I'm going to categorically bracket out the possibility of miracles. Well, there's no explanation left that can account for certain phenomena. So, again, I think that in the course of church history, there's been miracles that have been performed, and those miracles seem to defy, I don't like to say suspend, because go back and listen to our episode on miracles if you want to hear more about this, but it's not it's not suspending the laws of physics. It's in a way defying them, because what happens in the course of a miracle is that a power, an agency is working at a level of materiality that we simply don't have the power to, like it's materially possible to walk on water. It's just that we can't do that ourselves. But God has the power and the authority to make water walkable. So he performs the miracle, or he can make the blind eye see, or the deaf ear hear, or he can make the withered hand unwithered.
Yeah.
But all of these are phenomena that take place within the material, the visible order of things, as an expression of a power that is being exerted on that order of things by something that is more powerful than it. God, it could be an angel or whatever. But
Okay.
so it's like that's what the Bible seems to give witness to, is that there are creatures, there is a God that exists, and there are creatures that exist that can do things that humans can't. So Raphael can be sitting there talking and then suddenly vanish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does that happen? Or Jesus can walk through walls and eat fish. Both of those things. There's no biology, physics, chemistry that can explain that.
Yeah.
And we're running into the same problem with the Shroud of Turin. What they're basically saying is that the amount of energy that would be necessary in order to leave that image on the shroud, I mean, it would have been a nuclear bomb blowing up that would have annihilated, the entire Middle East. Well, that's not possible. That couldn't have happened, because if it had happened that way, everything would be destroyed.
Yeah.
So there somehow something of a different order of being was able to leave the image onto the shroud, because there just simply isn't a physical explanation. Because
Right.
when we bring physics to bear on the explanation, the only physics we can bring to bear can't explain the phenomenon, because it couldn't happen that way.
Okay. So, question. I'm a Navy fighter pilot, because Joe Rogan had I think a guy on who was a
Right.
pilot who witnessed these things. Like, doesn't it seem like angels, or I don't know so much about like demonic entities, but angels usually show up, like you're saying, with some kind of message. It's almost like if this were an angel, he's just sort of like floating by, and then he's like, oh gosh, I forget, like, oh boy, they saw me. You know what I mean? Like, it seems so arbitrary or meaningless to be seen, to be you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so why? What would be the purpose? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what, we accidentally caught a glimpse of an angelic being?
Well, that's why, like I qualified earlier, it's like we see something, but do we really know what we're seeing?
Yeah.
Like, you could have, again, if they saw it with their naked eye, that's one thing, versus they captured it on camera. Sometimes we capture things on camera that people didn't see with their naked eye, and sometimes people catch something with their eye that they didn't capture on tape. So it's like it all gets very slippery,
Sure.
very quick. But
Yeah.
assuming, it could be some kind of glitch in the technology, like a speck of something on the camera lens, that creates the appearance or illusion of something moving very quickly. Or it could be, so if you bracket out all of those other natural explanations, and you really can't come up with a natural explanation, and you seem to be witnessing something that you're seeing, but you can't find any physical explanation for, it's reasonable to posit that some sort of spiritual entity is manifesting itself. Now, I think the more important part of the question you're asking is like, well, in the Bible, it always seems to be the case that there's some purpose for a good angel to be. It's always a message. It's always it's always a message.
Yeah.
And of course, down through the lives of the saints have been ministered by angels, and saints will attest to the fact that they experienced and they had experience of angels. This happens a lot of times when people are dying. People have near-death or dying experiences or near-death experiences where there seems to be an angelic presence, and it's always light. It's just the dying person sees something. The people that are maybe in the room witnessing this, they see the person, and they might notice a strange light in the room, or some kind of, like, I know a story, like, for example, there was a high school kid that I went to school with. He was disabled. He died of leukemia. And the neighbor swears that, like, right before he died, he sat up, and he said, I can see the Blessed Mother, and or I can see Mary, he said, And anyway, he kind of laid back down, and he's still alive. He didn't seem to be like at the very moment of death, but he was near death. So after a little time, the neighbor left the room and went to go back to her house for a time, and claims that she walked past the window of the bedroom, cutting through the yard to get to her neighbor's house, and she looked into the window, and she could see all of these luminous figures gathered around the bed. And it was right at that moment, apparently, that he died. Now, again, I don't know if she's telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
But it certainly seems like it's not implausible.
Yeah.
Like only the skeptic, the scientistic skeptic, who has only an empirical view of reality, who only has a naturalistic, will only accept a naturalistic explanation of everything. Only that person would deny that such an event is possible. As a believer, I'd say, of course, something like that is possible. And in fact, down through the ages, we have countless testimonies of people that have experienced the presence of an angel in their life that manifest themselves in very much the same ways that angels did in the Old Testament. And there's just no reason to not believe that something like that could happen, apart from the fact that you'll never have an explanation from biology, chemistry, or physics that's going to explain how that's possible.
Yeah.
But to reduce reality to only what can be explained in terms of those scientific accounts, well, that's, in my opinion, that's dumb. That's to say that the only things that are real are things that my very limited human intellect can perceive or grasp or explain by means of the scientific method. And I just think that one thing you can say is that as Catholics, we simply just don't believe in that kind of intellectual reductionism.
Yeah. Now, it seems like these, at least my understanding of the guys these priests that are making comments on this, they tend to gravitate more towards the idea that these are demonic and like sightings versus like a good angel.
Right. So back to the point you were making, like the good angels seem to have a purpose, which is to be a messenger. The demonic seem to have a purpose, and that's to distract, disorient, confuse us. So I think that the logical leap that these exorcists or other theologians or priests are making is that if these are, it's an if-then statement, if these are angelic beings, they would be of the demonic order, because the only thing that could account for what they're doing is that it seems to be inducing fear, an unhealthy curiosity and speculation about something which in fact science tells us actually would be impossible. Like this fascination and obsession with alien life seems to be wrapped up and bound up at times, not always, but at times, with a kind of naturalistic fallacy, a rationalistic and empiricist fallacy. Like, in other words, I have to believe, as an article of my own materialist faith, that the only explanation for this has to be an alien from another planet.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a fateful move away from theism, and the much more plausible explanation that there is a whole realm of reality that we can't empirically explain. It's way more plausible from an intellectual standpoint and a philosophical standpoint, unless you're a cynic, or unless you are a materialist, unless you are a scientific-minded person who will only accept an empirical explanation. But I think that's, like I said earlier, I think that's dumb. I think that's not intelligent to assert that. It's pride that I think might lead to that kind of conclusion, or I just simply can't believe in something that I can't understand. And it's like, well, that's crazy, because there is so much we don't understand about things, and it's way more plausible that there's a whole realm of creatures out there that are immaterial.
Yeah. Ultimately, for me, when I think about these things, which isn't really all that often, and I haven't really kept up with any of what they've been releasing. I don't know if any of it's like groundbreaking. Is it? I don't know.
What, these films?
Yeah, these files, these whatever. Like
every video I've seen, and I'm guessing the news is picking the best ones, right?
yeah,
Wouldn't they? Why would they pick the least convincing ones?
right.
And the most convincing ones are always these like kind of shadowy shapes in the sky
Yeah,
that are either still photographs or these little points of either dark spots or light moving across a field of vision at an unbelievable, physically impossible speed, and then taking these weird turns and changes. And you're like, well, I just don't know what I'm looking at right now. And that's kind of everybody's conclusion. You're like, I don't know what that is.
But with that said, I don't know. My gut always kind of comes back to like, who cares? Like, why should I care about that? Let's say there are aliens that that are watching us, that are observing us. That like, how should that how does that change my life in any way?
Well, that's a really, really good question, because to date, none of these sightings, whether you see it with your own eye or whether you capture it on a film, has had any appreciable effect on human existence.
Right. Yeah.
It hasn't harmed us in any way. It hasn't revealed anything about anything to us.
Right.
Like, nothing changes except for the fact that we have a photograph, or we have a reel of film, or we have a supposed eyewitness account.
Yeah.
It's all in the realm of the fear that's generated, or the kind of intrigue that's generated by our speculating what it could be.
Yeah.
And the whole point, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that it's like, okay, from the standpoint of a theologian who has also studied some aspects of science, there really isn't any plausible scientific explanation that would link these sightings to alien life anywhere else in the universe. Like, it just doesn't seem to be a possibility.
Yeah.
So you're left with two other options. Option A is it's just some kind of it's either a hoax, or it's some kind of other kind of glitchy, like technological glitch or something that created this, or it could be a real phenomenon, and that phenomenon would be generated by another order of existence that we call angels, and either it's good or it's bad.
Yeah.
And you can further speculate that you can't come up with a compelling theological reason that an angel would appear as a flying saucer. So because of the kind of intrigue, and I would say the fear and the angst that it generates, that we make movies about, the fear of this.
Yeah.
E.T. is the one exception, where it's like you
Right.
fall in love with the alien and you love aliens more than you love the humans. The humans are the evil bad guys, and E.T. is the the happy hero of the story, because he's like a little cuddly animal,
Yeah.
But every other alien invasion is always a threat to the. So what it generates is fear in us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not implausible to speculate that if, again, all the if-then statements, I'm being very careful about what I'm saying here, if this is a real phenomenon that can't be explained empirically, then it could be an angelic manifestation, and if it's an angelic manifestation, it is likely to be of the demonic order. And that's called good speculative thinking. Like, that's what I'm doing here. I'm being curious around the actual supposed evidence that we have and postulating what it might be. And it's not unreasonable to do that. And I don't think anybody in the church should be disciplined for speculating along those lines. But if I were to say, as a theological authority and expert, these are demons. See, and if that's what has happened, and it seems like it has, that would be crossing a line.
Yeah.
Because I can't prove that.
Right.
Right. I can't prove that logically. I can't prove it philosophically. I can't prove it scientifically. I'm speculating. And again, how many people have gone to hell? I mean, is this a moral offensive? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if the aliens are appearing to me and encouraging me to fornicate and do drugs and commit
Right.
like real sin,
Yeah, yeah.
then okay, like that we take a more serious look at
Yeah.
that. But like it has had absolutely no effect
None.
on human behavior apart from the fact that we get a little weird and angsty wondering, gee, I wonder if aliens are living among us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just go and make myself a cup of chocolate milk and go out
Yeah.
and weed my yard. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it just
Right.
it just doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
Us in any way.
Honestly, I'm like, okay, if in the end it proves to be true, okay. But if it doesn't, okay. Like, I don't know. I don't, I have a really difficult time understanding the craze around it. I
Yeah.
don't get it. Like, there's so many other things that I have to be concerned about.
Well,
and that's
I think that people today live with a lot of existential insecurity.
well, even
and
if it's a
they're
demon,
reaching right.
people are like, whoa, what does that mean? Like, it's like, I don't know. I kind of trust in the power of God. Like, should I be bothered by that?
Well, no. Not at all. I mean, like, if an actual demon appears before you and, like think about Padre Pio and, how he was attacked physically by demons, that gets very serious and real
that
fast.
would be probably a little bit different.
But again, like the, dots of light on a grainy black and white film,
right.
there's absolutely nothing to even think about with something like that. The level of speculation it requires is so thin that it's like it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, but we're fascinated by it. It's a distraction, and the only theological significance of it is the fact that, to the extent to which it takes our attention off the actual reality of God
Mm-hmm.
and the reality of the presence of the good angels in our life.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, it's only destructive to us if we become so obsessed with it that we lose sight of what really matters and what's really important. And I think that's a cautionary tale in why sometimes it's not bad to reel in some of these people that are going too far in their speculations. But on the other hand, we also don't want to like overreact to it either, because there's a legitimate place for speculating in an honest intellectual way about what we could be dealing with.
Yeah.
I'll end by saying this. In all of my thinking over the years about where the physical, when you look at quantum physics, you're dealing with light and energy. And energy is a mysterious thing. And we know that when energy converts from one state into another state, it gives off light and heat. But we don't know necessarily, really, except descriptively, what causes the transfer of energy. It's like gravity. It's the same thing. We can describe it, but we really don't know what it is. Like, like every physicist will tell you, like, we don't know what gravity is. We don't know what light is. Light behaves like a particle in a wave. We don't know what it is. But when the metaphysical comes to its outer, sort of edge of explanatory power, what you end up talking about is light and energy. And when you look at the biblical accounts of the angelic world, you're constantly talking about light. It's just, God created light in the beginning, and then he separated the light from the darkness. Many of the fathers of the church speculated that was the creation of the angelic order, and then the fall of the demons, so that the darkness is the demonic and the light is the good angels, and then God created the visible world. And many theologians down through the ages have speculated that God created the visible material world through the mediation of the angels. And so the angels have some creative role to play as co-workers of God in the creation of the material order. So on a quantum level, when you start looking carefully into the properties of all material visible realities, what you end up with is a lot of space that's carved up by what I call patterned energy. It's like it's energy, transferring from one state into another in some kind of patterned way. And it gives off light and heat. And what we can detect with our telescopes and our our neutron microscopes and all this stuff is the effect of those changes that take place. Light, we we grasp light. We
Yeah.
see light behaving and these phenomenon occur. Well, what I've always felt as a theologian is that our visible there's kind of like two orders of sight in the human experience. There's our eyeballs, and so we can look through our instruments and we can see things with our eyes. Light happening, light behaves, and it's here and then it's over here. It's like it moves almost instantaneously. But we also have our mind's eye. So our mind can conceptualize and form models and conceptualization of things. And so we can model the atom, for example, and draw a picture on the blackboard of what an atom looks like. But we're not actually seeing that thing.
Yeah.
We're creating a model of a representation of something that really takes place on the level of energy and light.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right at the cusp of, when you're looking at things on a quantum level or the quantum physics, you're looking at something at the very edge, where you're at the threshold between the physical and the metaphysical. And I've always speculated as a theologian that what ultimately accounts for the phenomenon that we can observe on the quantum physical level is actually the effect and the result of things that are happening on the personal level in the spiritual order. So we're actually seeing very, very proximately the actual personal agency of angelic beings operating within the order of creation according to the eternal law of God. And that's why something can be here and then it's over here, because it's that change that's taking place is the immediate effect of a thinking angel that's somehow mediating the laws of physics for us, so that we have a stable, predictable, material, visible order to exist in.
Dang.
And I think, again, that's pure speculation, but I think it's plausible. When you look at Aquinas's angelic, treatise on the angels and other, accounts of the angels, and then you study what quantum physicists are saying about the quantum level, you're like, boy, these two orders of things are like really close together. And I think that's about as close. One's touching the other. It's where the two, orders of existence are touching, the visible and the invisible. And that's just really cool. So what's to say that every once in a while, when God decides it's advantageous to us, that somehow the invisible order breaks into the visible material order in the manifestation of an angelic, presence.
Yeah.
And maybe God allows the demons to, play their little tricks on us and their little games on us and get us all distracted and sideways, because God seems to give a lot of latitude to the action of the demonic. He seems to let them do a lot of things, Ultimately, we don't know why, but he does. So we can, that's sort of my final reflection, is just that all of this is pretty cool, I think. And I think that there are ways to speculate in rational and intelligent ways without getting all weird about it.
Yeah, super cool. Great conversation. Makes for some really good movies. So
It does.
It does.
I can't wait. I want to see.
I know, me too.
I want to see.
When's it coming out?
Spielberg's. I think it's
This week.
coming out tomorrow night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
So, all right. Well, hopefully this was a fun conversation for you, and maybe it gave you lots of things to think about. But it just seems like we live in a time today where everybody is going to these kind of hysterical extremes, and hopefully this conversation helped you find the kind of reasonable mean in the middle of all of this kind of craziness that we hear, whether it's aliens or the demonic. So anyhow, hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, and share it with your friends.
See ya.
The Wise Guys Podcast is a production of Preambula Group, a Catholic ministry dedicated to helping you thrive in the heart of Jesus. Visit us on the web at preambula.org and follow us on social media.